This video is sponsored by Surfshark. When I attended the very first local IMAX screening of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiney, I was so struck by how few attended that screening that I tweeted a picture of it. Over the next few days, many such pictures would appear from near-empty screenings across the world, because like Disney and Pixar's Elemental before it, Indiana Jones was universally rejected by audiences worldwide. It didn't help that they practically gave away tickets in special promotions with various commercial partners. In the end, the movie tanked so badly it opened within striking distance of The Flash. Due to the tremendous cost that went into making it, this Indiana Jones is destined to go into history as one of the biggest flops of all time. For the cash-stricken Disney, this is a disaster beyond words, and from what we're hearing, the finger-pointing and shifting of blame has already begun. So, what went wrong here? How could Indiana Jones flop this badly? It is time to find out. In this postmortem, I will begin with going through how the entertainment media complex is trying to explain what happened, before adding in the factors they did not consider, and finally, explore which repercussions this catastrophic failure will have for Disney, and more specifically for Lucasfilm, and even more specifically for Kathleen Kennedy. Lucasfilm had 3 properties: Star Wars, Willow, and Indiana Jones, and on Kathleen Kennedy's watch, all 3 have been destroyed. I mean, Star Wars was at one point the biggest entertainment brand on the planet, but by putting her values and her worldview into it, Kennedy turned it into an audience repellent that is actively contributing towards millions upon millions of Disney Plus cancellations so far this year alone. That said, if you're thinking about canceling your own subscription to Disney Plus or indeed any other service, then we urge you, please don't take to the high seas, as neither Midnight's Edge nor our sponsors condone piracy. Not only is it wrong, you would be exposing yourself to endless spyware, tracking software and other malware out there on the high seas. And that's on top of all the data that could be stolen from you during all of your regular browsing and sold to third parties. Have you noticed all the spam and scam emails you're getting? Well, they got your email address from those third parties. That's how that happens. There is a fix for all of that though. To protect yourself, you need to protect your data, and a good way of doing that is through a VPN, such as the one delivered by this channel sponsored Surfshark. A VPN, or Virtual Private Network, is a privacy protection tool which guarantees instant online safety and encrypts all data sent via the internet, thereby protecting your data and you. But there's more. Surfshark allows you to bypass geo-blocking restrictions by changing the country you access the internet from, which gives some great advantages when it comes to streaming. For instance, you can access 15 different Netflix libraries, all with a different selection of movies and TV series, simply by changing your virtual location, which is easy, because Surfshark has over 3,200 servers in more than 100 countries around the world. Outside of the US, Star, the international version of Hulu, comes bundled with Disney Plus. If you're in the US and change your location to, say, the UK, well then you just might get that too. That's pretty good, but it gets even better. If you type in the code MIDNIGHT when ordering, that triggers an exclusive offer of 3 months for free. Furthermore, Surfshark also offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk in trying it out. Do check out the link in the description below for further details and to order. Thanks to Surfshark for sponsoring this video. And with that, let's begin with just how badly the movie is failing. There are quite a few out there who think that whenever a movie opens to almost 60 million domestically and in the 130 million vicinity worldwide, then that movie has to be doing good. If that's you, then let me disabuse you of that notion right away, because how good or how bad a movie's opening is depends entirely on how big a production and marketing cost that ultimately has to be recouped. If you're a mid-budget or even low-budget movie, opening to 60 million is beyond amazing, but if you're an average big-budget blockbuster, then not so much. And due to a very, very expensive cast and ditto expensive director and producers, Indiana Jones cost more than your average blockbuster before even a frame of footage had been shot. Add lockdown restrictions and multiple rounds of reshoots to that, then as reported independently by both our own Tom Connors, Valiant Renegade, WDW Pro, and Jonas J. Campbell over at that Park Place, the movie had a total production cost of more than $300 million. And on top of that, you can add another $100 to $150 million in marketing. Also, the theater chains, being the greedy swine that the studio generally considers them to be, stubbornly demand a hefty cut of the box office for themselves. All of which translates to that this movie will need to gross $800 to $900 million just to break even. And given a lackluster $130 million worldwide opening and even more lackluster word of mouth, it doesn't have a chance in hell of getting there. The only question now is how big will Disney's loss end up being? 100 million? In their dreams will they lose that little? 200 million? Yeah, that is more likely, but depending on how badly it collapses from here on out, this movie could end up losing them 300 million or more. This is so bad that no one is even trying to run cover here. This is just an unmitigated disaster. The only industry trade to, so far, do an honest breakdown of what went wrong here though, is Deadline Hollywood. So let's see what this industry representative, which blamed the Flash's failure on the cast's inability to do press because of Ezra and late-night talk shows being off the air due to the writer's strike, have to say. In a surprising twist of honesty, Deadline Hollywood's write-up reads, "There's no question this is a disastrous result for the finale to a historically beloved franchise film. Come on, Indiana Jones is one of the reasons Disney shelled out $4 billion for Lucasfilm." Rubbing in how bad this is, author Anthony D'Alessandro proceeds to write, "Not only did Star Wars bomb Solo open higher than Dial of Destiney, but so did Paramount's seventh quell, Transformers Rise of the Beasts. How could Disney and Lucasfilm mess this up?" That's a surprisingly direct question right there, and with a stunning implication stated there in front of the entire industry. They messed this up. It wasn't the audience, it was Disney and Lucasfilm. With that established, he then confirmed what so many in our circles had already reported, saying he learned from a key source that Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiney, before $100 million in estimated P&A, cost a mind-boggling $300 million plus. With the stakes of a movie with a total negative cost of at least $400 million established, probably closer to around $500 million or more, the article then goes into what went wrong, and I'll just list the reasons here. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiney has been destined to live in a temple of box office doom since world premiering at Cannes to lackluster reviews. Yeah, as we said at the time, the Cannes opening killed it. That screening not only spoiled the movie, it spilled the beans on how bad it was. After going through how long Lucasfilm spends on developing their projects, so they really should be better than this, Deadline Hollywood then gives their next reason why the movie failed. The biggest problem with Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiney is that there were no efforts here to cast up and make it appealing to an under 40 diverse crowd, like Paramount did with Top Gun Maverick. Dial of Destiney was conceived for the hardcore indie fan, which are dudes over 50. This is evident in the B- cinema score that Dial of Destiney received from 18 to 24-year-old moviegoers. Disney reports that 42% of the audience was under 35 for Dial of Destiney. Now, this is an assessment that I disagree with, but according to Deadline Hollywood, not diverse enough. Next, Deadline Hollywood goes on to say that everyone got along during production and there was no behind-the-scenes melodrama, which you'd think would be good. But then the author reports that he heard that several editors were brought in to get this one right. It's unfortunately apparent here that the sublime which Mangold delivered to the X-Men franchise with the R-rated Logan did not translate here to Indiana Jones. Well, duh, Mangold was always a bad fit for Indiana Jones, but I'll get back to that in due time. Going back to how everyone got along, that's Hollywood speak for that everyone were in agreement about what movie to make. Perhaps a little bit too much so, as that means there were no critical questions asked or heated debates during production or even pre-production. Sometimes you need those heated debates though, as that is how bad ideas that seemed good at the time are rooted out. But that didn't happen here, so when they made this movie that they all thought was so brilliant, the first cuts of it turned out to be dog shit, and several editors worked on it trying to salvage it. This is where you fit in Doomcock's rumors about extensive reshoots and retooling in order for the movie to be releasable, as well as WDW Pro's confirmation that those rumors were accurate. Next, the article states that the movie was never tested in front of a live audience, but that the consistent problem for Indiana Jones is that no later movie has been up there with Raiders of the Lost Ark, before concluding, which leads us to Dial of Destiney's blah results. Why so low? Because it's coming off of the Kingdom of Crystal Skull that not so many loved, and it's playing the same game of Indiana Jones getting older. Couple that with the sour reviews coming out of Cannes, plus the finale's older skewing audience who are slow to come to cinemas, and here we are with a less than stellar box office result. So, is that it? Or could there be even more reasons why the movie flopped that Deadline Hollywood for whatever reason did not mention? I think there might be, so let's go through them. The hardcore fans are very well aware of what Kathleen Kennedy stands for. Her penchant for breaking up couples the audience want to see together over trouble with their son, and for her idealized brunette and British self-inserts usurping the role of the hero. But that's the hardcore fans. The general audience has no active knowledge of any of this, but they've been burned many enough times before that they now recognize the smoke which heralds the fire. I submit that many enough in the general movie-going audience have seen enough movies in the past few years that the mere presence of a sassy know-it-all like Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character in a trailer is seen as a red flag and a reason to stay away. Because even the most general of the general audience are now smart to what the presence of such a character means will happen to the hero they want to see. Many actors, like Patrick Stewart to name one famous example, want to see the characters they helped cement as heroes return as broken old husks of their former selves. This intrigues them as actors, doing something different, enabling them to showcase how good they are at their craft. You know, the craft that Gary from Nerdrotic describes as adult pretending. Many writers, producers, and even directors feel that way too, and they have very good justifications to convince themselves why turning the hero into an old miser is the way to go. James Mangold is one such director, and as he showcased with Logan, he's very good at doing just that. But here, there's a disconnect between the filmmakers in one end, and the character and the character's integrity, and the audience in the other. Unlike Logan, who always had a tragic aspect to him which lent itself to that kind of deconstruction, Indiana Jones was always an adventurous and cheerful character the audience did not want to see broken. In short, the wrong filmmakers worked on this, and they made the wrong movie, as evident by the audience rejecting it, universally and worldwide. That's on Kathleen Kennedy. She should never have hired James Mangold for Indiana Jones, as his sensibilities are all wrong for that. Indiana Jones is pulp-era adventure, and I maintain that's the only way he'll ever work. Incredibly though, the filmmakers don't seem to understand that, so allow me to elaborate on it. Economically, the 1930s was a period of Great Depression, but creatively it was a golden age upon which the foundation of modern pop culture was built. The 30s begun with the absolute peak of pulp magazines and stories like Robert E. Howard's Conan the Barbarian. The mid to late 30s saw the transition from the pulp magazines to comic books with newspaper strips like The Phantom, while the late 30s saw the emergence of Batman and Superman. This was an age undreamed of massive social and economic change, and the transition of the old world into the modern world. The world was shrinking, but in a manner which enabled exploration of new worlds and lost civilizations that retained their mystery. With no backup, no Google, and no help one phone call away. This was the age of Indiana Jones. Or rather, it was the age of the serials which inspired George Lucas to make both the Star Wars and Indiana Jones movies half a century later. But it is nonetheless the time period to which Indiana Jones is intrinsically linked, to the point where the 30s is a character in the stories. Indeed, The Last Crusade, the movie in which Indiana Jones rode into the sunset, took place in 1938 as the 30s drew to a close. When we next saw Indiana Jones in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull in 1957, he was a man out of time and, in a sense, out of mysteries to explore and therefore out of purpose. This was even more true in Dial of Destiney, which took place in 1969. Indiana Jones obviously lived beyond the 1930s, but in order for Indiana Jones to be successful, the movies chronicling his adventures should be pulpy adventures set in the 30s featuring Dr. Jones in his prime. Stray too far beyond that, and well, the Dial of Destiney is the referendum on how the audience will appreciate that. Speaking of, the kind of box office this movie is getting will have repercussions. As we said before, on Kathleen Kennedy's watch, 3 out of 3 Lucasfilm properties have been destroyed, and this latter disaster, the Dial of Destiney, could not have come at a worse time, with Disney in something of a crisis between the box office, the waning park attendance, and the upcoming Hulu demerger. Sometimes in corporate politics, human sacrifice is needed to atone for mistakes, and this is in all likelihood one of those times. Has the turn finally come for Kathleen Kennedy, or will someone else be sacrificed in her place? WDW Pro has already reported that marketing and Lucasfilm are pointing their fingers at each other, with Lucasfilm claiming the audience weren't aware the movie was coming, and marketing essentially countering that Lucasfilm made a crap movie no one wanted to see. So, who will get to stay and who will go? That we will discuss in our next video. For now, let us know your thoughts on all of this in the comments, and before you go, remember that to help protect your data and bypass quarrelsome geo-blocking restrictions, you should get Surfshark VPN. Use our code MIDNIGHT to get 3 months for free, link is in the description.